Hello and welcome to the Bundesliga review show on a Monday night. It's myself and Peter with you tonight for the latest analysis of the weekend's games and results. Obviously, Rory, as you could probably see, isn't with us this week. I think he's got a bit of a bout of food poisoning in Paris. They always say, watch out for that French food. And yeah, it's once again struck by the look of it. But how are you over there, Peter, in Karlsruhe?
We're doing well. Doing well. It's always great to see you, and sending warm wishes to Rory. Occasionally he checks in when he's not with us, but if he's feeling a little bit on the nauseous side, perhaps he'll catch up with us later. But hope you're doing well, Rory. Miss you. Look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, definitely. We all wish him well, and remember not to eat that French food again in the future. Stick with the burger and chips. Yeah, but once again, it's been a fantastic weekend of Bundesliga action, and it probably not the most goals we're ever going to see this weekend, but once again, strikers, on form again, and some big results over the weekend. Just a reminder before we start to remember to check in with us and like, comment, and subscribe. Keep us going, keep us getting over that 1,000 mark. We're still continuing our progress. And we're hoping to be hitting the 1,100, 200 mark before too long. Keep on watching our vlog as well, Kaiserslautern Nuremberg. We have got more of them coming up for you as well soon, which we might let you know later on in the week where we're going to be going this weekend. But yeah, keep liking, commenting, and subscribing to us. So yeah, without further ado, let's crack on with our featured four. So again, as usual, it's always quite difficult to choose those four games. There's always so many entertaining matches in the Bundesliga. But this weekend, we are going to start over in Köpenick, where the faltering Union Berlin side at the moment fell to, incredibly, a second straight home defeat against the on-form TSG Hoffenheim. I think, Peter, you tipped this one, didn't you, actually? I was thinking when you tipped an away win, I was thinking, not so sure about that one. But to be honest, for me, it went on to be quite a comfortable and convincing 2-0 win in truth. Apart from, a bit of a flurry in the second half from Union, some good play from Fofana. It was quite a comfortable win, really, for the away side. And especially in the first half, I felt as though Hoffenheim really hit the straps. And, obviously Kramaric with that penalty after a foul from Bonucci, who probably hasn't really made the best start to his time at Union Berlin. Maybe a few kind of shadows hanging over that signing at the moment. He is 36, almost 37, playing in a new league. But it was comfortably dispatched by Kramaric for another goal for him this season. And then that man, probably the breakout star of the season, Maximilian Bayer, with his fourth goal of the season as well. He's a classic number 9, isn't he? A great finish from him as well, getting across the defender and finishing comfortably past Reneuve. But yeah, then Hoffenheim were kind of denied a second penalty after a VAR review, which showed that the foul actually happened outside the box. But Peter, I felt as though this was a really, really comfortable away win. And, Hoffenheim are really starting to find the strides under Pellegrino Matarazzo. How do you feel about that one?
Well, it was not a pleasant thing to tip Hoffenheim for the win here at the Stadion Alte Försterei. I think when you brought up Bonucci, that's something quite important. When I saw him commit that foul, I thought to myself, what on earth? Does he think that he's in the Serie A? And there's Rory. There's Rory. He's there in the comments section. Great to see you, Rory. Hope you feel better soon. Yeah, the Bonucci signing, I have so much praise for Oliver Runert as a administrator, the FCU managing director. I really wonder, I question the merits of this signing. This is a 36-year-old who has never played outside the Serie A in his life. He thought he could get away with that foul. Dennis Eitikin said, absolutely not in the Bundesliga. And, Union really struggled to recover from that. They produced almost nothing of note in attack in the first half. I will say that the play was a little bit more courageous in the second half and that there were some chances, but still the ideas weren't necessarily there, mostly long verticals towards Bayern, so on and so forth. To add insult to injury, it was Grisha Prömel, who was a longtime FC Union man. He helped them get promoted to the top flight. And then returned to Hoffenheim, which was his academy club. He also was here in Karlsruhe training with the Karlsruhe Academy for quite some time as well. who set up Maximilian Bayer's goal, the second goal from open play that pretty much sunk the ship. A little bit of bad luck for Union in the sense that Alex Kral was injured during the warm-up and Luka Toussaint had to run the midfield. They, of course, still do miss Rani Khedira, the skipper, the captain, who was meant to run that 3-5-2 double stack. But Toussaint, well, what can we say about him? I mean, he came to Hertha for 20 million or something like this during the Jürgen Klinsmann spending spree. But just like everyone else who came to Hertha during that time, he's been, of course, struggling with his confidence. Union have lost 4 on the trot. They have a tough schedule coming up. It very well may be the case that they're going to sink even further down the table. A lot of the German papers are labeling this a crisis. Of course, that's how you sell papers. It's sensational to label things a crisis. But really was, yeah, I mean, Hoffenheim beat them at their own game. Prömel did a fantastic job. Anton Stach from Mainz in his starting 11 debut for Pellegrino Matarazzo's Kraichgauer did a wonderful job sort of pincering there in Florian Grilich's space. I'm surprised to see Florian Grilic omitted from the squad entirely after he scored that goal last week. But Union, somehow we have to get back to Union football. And in my opinion, it comes down to some personnel choices now. Bonucci doesn't, until he gets his feet in the Bundesliga, he has no business starting in the middle of that back three. Robin Knoche can do a great job. I don't know why David Fofana is not starting at the moment. He seems to me to be, the Chelsea loanee seems to be vastly superior to Geraldo Becker in terms of current form. So we have some personnel choices, we have some hard luck, and we just Fischer needs to get them back to playing the kind of football that they are known for, because Hoffenheim basically beat them with their own game. Is that how you saw it?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, to be honest, for me, I think there was so much fanfare over the Union Berlin signings this year. You know, obviously Gosens coming in, obviously Bonucci, who really was the kind of like, you know, the gem, the supposed gem of this side. But I was one of those people that was a little bit cautious about this one. As you mentioned, he's never played outside Italy before. He'd actually come on the back of effectively being thrown out of Juventus as well after some kind of dispute with Max Allegri, the manager there. And I just wondered, really, is this a case of him really wanting to join Union Berlin or just looking for a kind of final Champions League paycheck? And, you know, it's still too early to talk about it yet. He's only played 2 games, but he looked poor, really poor, to be honest, in this game. And as you say, I mean, that foul was ridiculous, really. And he was trying to protest his innocence, but it was a blatant foul. And, you know, it set the team off to a bad start in the game. To be honest, I'm looking at their squad at the moment, and I'm just thinking, like, how many of their new signings have actually started well, to be honest, apart from Gosens, obviously, who has 3 goals under his belt and has started well. But, I mean, the other one is Aronson as well. He's not exactly set the world alight at all, as is the American, who, you know, he always seems to have a big fanfare wherever he goes. Obviously, coming from the United States, there's a lot of people hoping he does well over there, but I mean, he's not really impressed me at all wherever I've seen him, in truth, and there's a few worries about him. As you mentioned, Toussaint, who obviously came over the border effectively from Hertha Berlin. You know, he was good last season, but he's looking a bit out of his depth in this this Union side at the moment. And I wonder whether basically Union have kind of like abandoned their like old school players. As you mentioned, the likes of Robin Knoche has started on the bench, but he's been so good the last 2-3 seasons. And, you know, in my opinion, he deserves his chance to like ply his trade in the Champions League and stay in this squad. But I mean, I don't know whether maybe Urs Fischer and the board have just gone a step too far and brought in too many star names in a way. And obviously Kevin Folland as well, he's serving a suspension after being sent off on debut as well. And I think aside from Gosens, I really don't think that any of their signings, maybe Fofana as well, in the little he's actually played, I'm really struggling to see any of those Union signings that have really started well. And that is concerning because, you know, they're paying a lot of money in wages, also on transfer fees. And if they don't get in the Champions League next year, they'll want to sell some of those guys on. And if they can't sell them on, they might end up taking some financial losses. So that is definitely a concern. There's still a long way to go. But as you say, it's 4 defeats in a row. And to be honest, at the moment, I can't see where the next win's coming from because there's a lot of off-form players on that squad, and it's looking a little bit worrying. Hoffenheim on the other side are looking really good. They've finally found a squad and balance in a team that, is really looking good. Anton Stach, really, really good signing. And I think that the Bayer-Weghorst centre-forward partnership is working really well too. They look attacking. They're a little bit physical nowadays, Hoffenheim. They've changed the style a little bit from being like a more entertaining, open side to a little bit more, robust. And I quite like the look of their midfield at the moment. And Joshua Anthony Brooks has really got his form back, which is fantastic as well, because we're all fans of him on this show. And that they've found a tune out of this squad, and things are looking good for them. And it's 4 wins on the spin, incredibly, for Hoffenheim now. So we'll have to see whether they can make it 5 against Dortmund on Friday. So yeah, moving on to the next game, it was the Leverkusen versus Heidenheim game. I think me and you, Peter, picked 4-2. We both went 4-2, and it was very, very nearly the case with this one. We all knew it'd be open, entertaining, attacking. So many good attacking players on show in this one. So Peter, who kind of shone for you the most out of those really impressive attacking players in this one?
Oh, Christ. Just about everybody did. This was a thoroughly dominant performance from Leverkusen. I don't believe that it was not XG at the half for Frank Schmidt's Heidenheim. And then, of course, the goal that was scored by Dinkci, there was a foul on Jonas Hofmann in the lead-up. And in addition to that, was it Dovdan, who was in an offside position, potentially interfering, potentially screening Lucas Hajecki. So the Heidenheim goal could have been disallowed on 2 separate merits. Absolutely. So, the only thing that was disappointing about Leverkusen Heidenheim was that we didn't really get some nuanced tactical shifts from Xabi. They, of course, were coming off that tight turnaround in the Europa League, in which they rolled over Häcken, the Swedish side there at home at the Bayer Arena. And it looked like Xabi and the staff, they didn't opt to draw up any nuanced tactics for the 3-4-3, because his 3-4-3, it shifts 2 or 3 times a match. I was talking about this a little bit last week, and us tactics heads in the Bundesrepublik were always keen to watch a Leverkusen match, because what he does is he has these little folded up pieces of paper that he gives usually to Xhaka, to let him know what the tactical shift of the match was. We saw that there in Bayern. So I was keeping my eye on Xabi on the broadcast camera there, because I wanted to see that piece of paper, but I didn't see that piece of paper. He just let the boys play. He just let them do what they do. And it was an amazing performance for everybody. Frimpong faded a little bit in the second half, but he was absolutely dominant in the first. Wonderful assist from Palacios there in unlocking Jonas Hofmann. Florian Wirtz looks to be fully fit. He's doing fantastic. Boniface, so glad that we, if you look back to the first Matchday show that we did, we had to admit that we were pronouncing his name wrong last season during all of our Union Saint-Gilloise watch-alongs. And we welcome this player to the Bundesliga. He's simply amazing. And I think I mentioned this before on the pod, that Stefan Baumgart said that he would have signed Boniface over Kane. What about? What do we think about that now? So in any event, this was an absolute another steamroller performance for Leverkusen, who are very much title contenders at this point, provided everybody can stay fit and healthy. Be interested to get some of your favorite moments about it, because I can only cover so much. So what were your favorite parts about this match, Mark?
Yeah, to be honest, the player that really stood out for me more than any wasn't even on the starting lineup, and it wasn't even on the score sheet, I should say, and it was Palacios. Like, his assist for the first 2 goals were just beautiful play, and I'm just really enjoying Palacios in general at the moment. I think, obviously, it took him a long time to kind of get used to the Bundesliga, but then when he won the World Cup with Argentina, he was really kind of influential in that side, and that's just given him such a boost, and he just looks like he's loving his football at the moment, and he's fired up to glory every game, and he's just playing so well, really. What a player. And this Leverkusen side just never fails to impress me, really. I just think it's an unbelievably good roster of players. Like, that starting 11 for me is potentially even better than Bayern's. I really do believe that, even with Kane. I just think it's a brilliant 11, really. Like, Boniface has just been, wow. Like, even occasionally you think, like, how did he not score more? Because he's so good going forward, and he's so strong and fast. He gets 6-7 chances a game, literally. That's what it's been like the whole season. And, you know, if he starts to become like a machine with his finishing, like he is in every other aspect, he could get 30 goals this season. I really do believe that. He's that good. He's a superb number 9, really. Better than Schick ever was, basically, for me. I would say that much. And I just think, you know, the Wirtz, Hofmann, could he have started any better, really, in a Leverkusen shirt? He's been superb as well. Just brilliant, really. And I think Xhaka and Palacios is the best axis in the league. I really do believe that as well. I think it's a fantastic central midfield. And then that doesn't even get us started on, you know, the wing backs, Grimaldo and Frimpong. Wow. Like, again, probably the best in the league. And this is an incredible squad, genuinely an incredible squad. And they're going to keep growing in confidence too. They've got a manager now. Finally, they've got a top class manager who can genuinely push them to a title, or at least a cup or a Europa League, you know. And this is such an exciting team. It's almost ridiculous, really. I don't think there are any weaknesses. But if you are talking about a weakness, it's probably the goalkeeper, as we've said before, you know. But he's not done any major clangers this season, and he's been so far so good. I think, you know, Jabi's improved. Jonathan Tah has had a bit of a resurgence in his career. Tab Sober is looking as good as he's ever looked. And these are just really exciting times, genuinely. And, you know, obviously Heidenheim actually did quite well to keep it to 1-1 after an hour. I actually agree with you, Peter, that the goal should have been disallowed, in my opinion. I don't know how that wasn't given as a foul, to be honest with you, in the build-up. But again, good play from Bester, who, you know, really deserves a lot of credit for the way he started. And that man Dinkci with his 4th goal of the season as well. So, you know, this was a step too far for Hoffenheim, but you're not going to beat this kind of team at the moment. And they're just rolling everyone over, literally everyone. You know, the football is really good. Peter, can you actually remember a team playing such good football, like, for over 5-6 games is what we've seen from Leverkusen so far this season? I just think they've been that good, really. I just think there's not a single weakness in that squad. And I'm just so excited about what they can do this season.
Well, Xabi is the best trainer in the league. We know that much. That was why he was leading Elf Freunde prior to the season. And that's why I often joke on this pod that he's either going to win the title with Leverkusen or with Bayern, depending on how the season unfolds. And yes, I mean, we miss him already. I mean, he's obviously going to depart for Real Madrid in his Iberian Peninsula. I think that should probably be treated as fact after the season. But yeah, I mean, they had the perfect transfer window, so to speak. And I think I was remarking last week that Granit Xhaka is making a fool out of most of the Bundesliga competition there. Not too much to say. I mean, Heidenheim, they did defend with what Germans call Mann und Maus, you know. I was joking about this in the column that Mann und Maus verteidigen, to defend with man and mouse. That's like the German naval equivalent of all hands on deck. The Brits, actually, since you're successful naval people, you know, you put all hands on deck. We throw the mice up there. You know, and it's they did the best that they could, but eventually the floodgates were going to open. And when I saw Dovdan in the starting 11, I thought about you, because I know that you're not the biggest fan of your former FC Nuremberg player there. Mm-hmm. When I saw him slotted in at striker, I was like, so this guy's got to do. He's got to do some defending as well. I pretty much knew the scoreline before it actually unfolded. We came close with the tip. You know,
to be honest, I think I remember walking around Furt with you, actually, Peter, saying, why the hell have Heidenheim signed him? Because Nuremberg fans were literally like begging him to leave the club after 2 very, very, like, basically unsatisfactory seasons with their club. But yeah, I was surprised by that. But I think that basically Heidenheim have got more than enough quality to replace him. I would much rather see Pieringer in that spot for the next game. But, maybe they just realized that they had no chance. They'd need too many hands on the proverbial deck to stop this Leverkusen. They thought they'd give Dovedan a rollout. I don't know. But it obviously didn't work. And I actually thought Heidenheim put up a bit more of a fight in this game because, as you said, they were lucky to get that one goal, and it was basically a complete annihilation from first minute to last, really. But credit to Heidenheim and Frank Schmidt, that they are fighting, and it shows just what that they mean business. The fact that they managed to go in at 1-1 after about an hour, so credit to them. They are a fighting team. They don't really have much quality in defence. I'm going to be honest. The defence is old school. Let's say that much. But what they have going forward is, for me, more than enough to stay in the division. I really do believe that. So, yeah, credit to Heidenheim, what they've done so far. But this was a bridge too far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, let's move on to another team that found it a bridge too far this weekend. And that was Bochum. Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about Heidenheim putting up a decent fight in this game, but that was what Bochum basically weren't able to do in the Allianz Arena on Saturday afternoon, where, fresh from Oktoberfest, the Bayern Munich fans were treated to a bit of a hammering, to say the least. And if it wasn't for Manuel Riemann in the Bochum net, this could have been 10 or even 12, really. I think Bochum were absolutely woeful in this game. That's all you can say, really. Like, Bayern Munich are really starting to find a tune out of the roster, I will say that much. I think this is the best they've looked. This last 2-3 games is the best they've looked since Thomas Tuchel took charge around 6 months ago. But that doesn't justify the effort that, basically the non-existent effort that VfL Bochum put into this game, because I know that, but it's hard to go to a place like the Allianz with no wins in 4. They struggle to win games at this level, especially away from home. But I mean, some of the defending in this game was like really, really poor. And obviously, Audets for the 5th goal. What was it? Like giving away a pass, like literally straight to Harry Kane, and then giving a handball away, which led to the penalty. That kind of summed up his afternoon. And then the pretty hapless-looking Bernardo as well, the new signing from Bochum, ended up doing basically the same for the 6th goal. So it just wasn't their day. It was always going to be hard for Bochum. And I like Bochum. I respect them as a club, and especially at home at the Vonovia, they can give teams a real go. But this was a desperately poor performance, Peter, wasn't it, from Bochum, really? Although credit to Bayern for getting the 7 goals.
Well, I'll talk about Bochum's tactics in a moment. First, I wanted to answer Samuel Boggs' question about Harry Kane technically not scoring a hat-trick. No, he scored a hat-trick. I myself found it somewhat humorous that Germans, when they were reporting on it, did not use the word hat-trick. And that's weird, because Germans use the word hat-trick. A brace in German is a Doppelpack. And on the rare occasions when a player scores 4 or 5 goals, it's a Vierpack, a Fünfterpack. It's all ordinal numbers. But when it comes to a hat trick is a hat trick. There is technically a German word for it, and that's either Dreierpack or Dreifächer or something like this, right? And that's what they were using with Harry Kane. And I was like, why aren't they calling this a hat trick? And the best reason I could think of was that it was just national pride. They were just like, Germans have enough to deal with. Our national team is in the toilet. Our U21s are not good. Our women are getting thrown out of the World Cup, and they just lost 0-2 over the weekend as well. And here we have this. We had to bring in an Englishman to make things, and damn it, we're not calling it a hat trick. Forget it. Because that's anglicization of German language. But in any case, here's what happened with Bochum, right? They didn't use a natural striker. It was Takuma Asano and Christopher Antwi who were starting together up front. And Berho was he tried a 3-4-1-2 was what he did. And there were a couple of occasions where Bochum were actually able to get some long balls forward, but since Philipp Hofmann wasn't in the lineup, I mean, they didn't really have a chance. Tuchel picked the perfect tactics. He gave Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting a start. And there's some discrepancy as to whether it was Kane or Choupo who was working as the service striker. I personally saw Kane working as the service striker more than I saw Choupo working as the service striker, particularly on that first goal where Choupo was cutting right in on that left-hand lane. So, yeah. It was like sort of a 4-4-2 with a stagger at the striker position from Bayern, up against this just horrible set of tactics from Thomas Lech, in which he didn't have a natural striker, in which he had a back three, in which he had advanced wing backs that Leroy Sané, Kingsley Coman, Alphonso Davies, and Joe Kimmich just flew by. I mean, they said forget about it. So before you knew it, I mean, Lech tried to reverse it in the 36th minute. He took off his wingbacks and he reformatted to a back four, and he brought on Hofmann. But by that time, it was too late. By that time, they were already down 0-3. And I have to say, you know, as a non-Bayern supporting German, I'm for Bayern in the Champions League because they represent the country. But in the league, hearing the can at the Allianz Arena, I mean, that's, you know, I don't like to see Bayern blow out their opponents at home, because then I have to hear the can. And I had to hear the can 7 times on Saturday. It's ear splitting. But everything's going perfectly for Bayern now. Balam mentioned there that Mathys Tel also scored off of the bench. So you have goals for Kane, you have Choupo and Mathys Tel in this one. Also Sané, also Kimmich playing a good match together there with Leimer in midfield. What was this kid's name? Franz Kretzig, that they brought on, who had played a good match as well. I mean, it was essentially the perfect match for Bayern. They are really rolling now. They are full of confidence now. Bayern Leipzig this coming Saturday night is going to be a little bit more of a test. We shall see. It shall be an interesting match. But, I mean, nothing went wrong for Bayern, with the exception of one bad Joshua Kimmich finish. I think it was in first half injury time. But after that, I mean, apart from that, it was an immaculate performance. And Harry Kane not only scored 3 goals, which is a hat trick in German, or a Dreifächer, but he also got 2 assists. And in doing so, he became the most successful Bayern new addition. No other Bayern player, not even Robert Lewandowski, has accrued that many scorer points, both that many goals and that many scorer points through his first 5 match days. And he is also the 4th Englishman, only the 4th Englishman to score a hat trick in the Bundesliga. And yeah, he broke all sorts of records this weekend. King Harry did indeed. So absolutely. Will Bayern or Leipzig go out in the DFB Pokal this week? No, neither one, I assure you.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's very, very unlikely. But yeah, it's funny you mention Kane, because it's been a season of strikers so far, hasn't it? It really has. We mentioned a lot, didn't we, last year, that there was no kind of like really, really amazing striker. But this year we've got literally like a league full of them. Basically, it's incredible, really, so far. You know, we'll talk about another one a little bit later. But yeah, it's funny you mentioned the goal music, because yeah, I agree with you on the can. But I've got to say, the Frankfurt goal music is superb, though. Yeah, they also play classical music when they score, but I absolutely love that one. Maybe it's just because I like Frankfurt scoring more than Bayern. I don't know, but it's I'm a big fan of the Frankfurt goal music, but yeah, not so much the Bayern one. But yeah, definitely. But one other point I wanted to mention as well, Peter, yeah, do you not feel as though there's like a very, very big gap between the top and the bottom of the league this season? Like, I didn't feel as though it was so big last year. We didn't see so many big scores. I think actually we also saw a 7-0 win for Bayern over Bochum, but we didn't see that many. Like this season, we've already seen Stuttgart with 2 5-0s. We've seen Leverkusen with a 4-1 and a 5-1. We've seen a lot of really heavy results, haven't we, so far? Do you feel as though like there's a really, really, because obviously we do have a lot of very good teams at the top end of the division this year, and as we mentioned, some really good strikers. But do you feel as though this is like the biggest gap for a few years between the top and, like, say, the top 6 and the bottom 6?
I mean, it is at the moment, because if you look at the table, the top six, and then seventh place is Wolfsburg, who, I mean, they obviously they can be a dominant team, but we have Niko Kovac in charge of that, and he does overtinker at times. But after you go down from seventh place to Eintracht Frankfurt and SC Freiburg, who played horrible, and we tipped this one, did we not?
Yeah,
I mean, in our prediction show, we said that the round capper, Eintracht Freiburg, was going to be a horrible match, and it was. It was absolutely, it was turgid, it was wretched, it was horrible, and that's because, I mean, both of these teams are really struggling. So if you go there, I mean, that's funny. A 0-0 draw. It was the first 0-0 draw of the season, and they're in 8th and 9th place. Eintracht and Freiburg, and then you go below that, it's Union, whom we talked about earlier, Werder, who actually they had a very rather impressive win this weekend. We'll get to that when we get to the best of the rest. I'll run that down after we select our our top match.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. I feel as though we got like 6/7, maybe Wolfsburg, like really good teams, but the rest of the league is yet to kind of kick off, really, I would say. But I think a lot of these teams will get better, but maybe it's just the fixture list has been a bit overloading for the likes of Freiburg and Union, and probably not the best transfer windows, hasn't particularly helped as well. But I do believe a lot of these teams will kind of settle out. But I do think that some of those kind of lower teams are a little bit weak, in my opinion, which we'll come to a little bit more later. But let's go to we will come to a few of the questions a bit later on, but I want to get to the game of the week. And I think DNNY has already mentioned this team, and we didn't mention them last week, and I thought they were a bit unlucky to miss out on the show last week after another 3-1 win. But we've got to talk about the Cannstatter boys, haven't we? I mean, Stuttgart with another really impressive performance against an admittedly pretty weak Darmstadt side. But, 3-1, it should have been way more, let's be honest. I mean, it was a very, very convincing Friday night in Stuttgart. And some of the football, like Guirassy, how much more do we need to talk about? And the man has now got 10 goals, incredibly, 10 goals in 5 games. It's just ridiculous numbers. Andy got an assist in this game as well. Could have been 2 assists if it wasn't for the soft offside against Furich, which would have made it 3-1 earlier in the match. And I just believe that this Stuttgart side is just looking so good at the moment. We've talked about Leverkusen, but to be honest, in terms of exciting football, this Stuttgart side isn't far behind them, in truth. I just think pretty much every player in this squad is on form, and obviously the main man is that man, Serhu Guirassy, who looked like he could be off at one point in the summer, didn't he? And oh boy, is Stuttgart happy that they managed to keep him. And they're going to be honest, they're going to be in a battle to keep him in January as well, because pretty much most of Europe knows his name now, and everyone's going to be looking at him because he just looks. I think we already knew, all Bundesliga fans knew he was a quality player, but I mean, what he's done this season is just another level, basically. I mean, 10 goals in 5 games. But I also want to give credit as well to Millot as well, who's a player that for me has really improved in the last 6 months under Sebastian Hoeneß. I believe he's really, really looking good in that attacking midfield position. Furich looks a new player. And then obviously Stenzel as well as another one who had a great game too. He wasn't really that popular with the Stuttgart fans before this season, but he's been really good this year, and it's just looking so good at Stuttgart at the moment. I mean, they've got 12 points on the board from just 5 games, which was unthinkable basically the last 2 seasons. And Peter, I mean, how good is Stuttgart, and how good is that man Guirassy?
They weren't as good as they were last week, and you're right. They were unlucky to miss out, unfortunately. Last week, I really thought, after giving the game another look, I was incredibly impressed with the build-up play, and particularly the short passing game, which is led by Nübel. I think that Nübel, and I can scarcely believe the words are coming out of my mouth, Dan Axel Zagadou, are really running this team out of the back, and they're doing a fantastic job. This 4-1-4-1 that has been in place since Wu Yongjong left to play in the Asian Games is really clicking. And Mio, as you mentioned, was Hoeneß's first pet project. As soon as Hoeneß came and took over Stuttgart right before the Pokal fixture, he put Mio in the lineup. And Millot scored in that fixture, and since then he's been steadily improving. Hoeneß has another one of his proteges there at Stuttgart, his former FC Bayern München 2 player, Angelo Stiller, who also played under him at Hoffenheim. They got him. That was an excellent signing. The only difference that I noticed tactically this week is that it might be the case that Stiller and Millot are running a little bit of a split stagger. But this 4-1-4-1, it's crisp. It's clean. It's neat. The triangles, I mean, they really work well. The back four bow arcs out of the back very elegantly, very, very nicely. And some of that also has to do with the fullbacks. Stenzel, who's come in and done a great job. I think we probably mentioned the fact that Bruno Labbadia played Valdemar Anton at right back 5,432 times during the pod last season, and condemned that move 5,432 times as well. So what Hoeneß has done with this crew, who has lost so many, is just simply amazing. Now, let's talk a little bit about what's going to happen to this team in January, because we shouldn't forget that we have the Africa Cup of Nations and the AFC Continental Championship in January. So we have Guirassy, we have Silas, who has still been sort of up and down form-wise, who are going to be at the Africa Cup of Nations. We have Ito and Zhang, who are going to be at the Asian Cup. I think Genki Haraguchi is still going to be around for whatever difference that makes. The January transfer window, they're going to need to sort of get this roster a little bit deeper, because they are going to lose players to 2 separate continental championships coming up in January, and that's something to keep an eye on moving forward. But Guirassy, I mean, he wanted to leave, and I remember when we were doing our first pod of the season, and I was talking with Rory, because I was covering his post-match interview, and he still wanted to leave. And the guy, the Sky interviewer who was interviewing him, said, "You're not really going to leave Germany, are you?" And he was like, "Thank goodness he stayed." He's a star. He can be a star here, and we're so pleased to have him, so proud to have him, so happy to have him, so glad, as you mentioned, that, you know, after watching Niklas Füllkrug win the Torjägerkanone last season with 16 goals, we've already got a guy who has scored 10. We're just 5 matches in.
It's just a different world this season, isn't it? Literally, like just a quick look actually at the top scorers. We've got obviously Guirassy on 10. It makes Harry Kane's 7 look like a paltry return. Incredibly, Like, you got to remember, we've already got Harry Kane on 7 with, I think, 3 assists on top of that too, 3 or 4 assists, and then we've got Boniface, who's pretty much torn the league up in his first season. He's way back in 3rd, 4 behind the top scorer, which is just incredible, really. And then on top of that as well, we've got Jonas Wind already on 5. Like, he's averaging a goal a game as well over the season, and he's not even in the reckoning for top scorer. And then we've got 4 players on 4 goals as well, which is just insane. We've got Leroy Sané on 4, Kevin Behrens, who it seems like a while since he banged in that 4 very early on in the season, doesn't it? And he actually missed an open net in the game this week as well. So, yeah, maybe he's not on the best of form. But even Aaron Dinkci as well has banged in 4, which is, wow, pretty incredible stuff. And then even Maximilian Bayer, and he's also on 4 in his first season in a Hoffenheim shirt. So this has been a season of strikers so far. It's been a season of goals. And to be honest, I've got a question: like, is Guirassy even going to want to go and play in the African Cup of Nations because, you know, we know that in the past players have like turned down the opportunity to play in that in order to better the chances at club level, and all of a sudden say he goes and knocks in 30 goals this season, which as what we've seen so far looks very possible.
I think he'll want to play. I mean,
you know, at least 25 in a full season, then he could maybe even get a big move to one of Europe's big clubs. You know what I mean?
That's true. That's true. But I mean, you know, I think I wish that a lot of Bundesliga players who do make the jump to England, I wish they would reconsider that. I mean, because that of course they can get big money, they can get their chance of their dream of playing in the Premiership, but well, I mean, when we get to the best of the rest, whenever that is, I'll be happy to. Should we talk about Timo Werner? I mean, he did score this weekend.
Yeah, he did. After we basically cast him out as well. We cast him out on the predictions this weekend, and he got a massive goal in the end. So yeah, that does bring us on to the best of the rest, actually. So go on, Peter. Do you want to start us off with that?
Absolutely. Well, so we covered Stuttgart Darmstadt on Friday night. That was the the curtain raiser, so to speak. Bayern München 7 times the Can ran coming out in the Allianz Arena with their 7-0 win over VfL Bochum. I think Bala mentioned that Bochum mentioned whenever they lose to Bayern, they stay up. Let's not forget they lost 7-0 to Bayern a couple years ago. They also beat Bayern in the reverse fixture that year. They did. The two 1-0 wins, Borussia Dortmund and Rasenballsport Leipzig, both edged out their opponents, Dortmund over Wolfsburg. It was a pretty laborious game there, Dortmund-Wolfsburg. Marco Reus actually ended up scoring the winner there in the 1-0 win. But the real hero of the match was probably Daniel Mahlen, who did all of the setup work. He came on as a substitute. Once again, we saw Daniel Mahlen serving alongside Niklas Füllkrug, who started the match in a 4-4-2. Füllkrug missed a wonderful opportunity to score in that match. He blamed it on his SV Werder Bremen shin pads that he hasn't replaced yet, as a matter of fact. The 1-0 win from Rasenballsport Leipzig over Borussia Mönchengladbach. Timo Werner did come in and score off the bench there. Kevin Campbell, who was wearing the captain's armband, congratulated Timo on doing that, an old friend of his. Hopefully he'll find some form, is what he said. Leipzig, of course, have Pokal fixture this week. Then they have Bayern and the Saturday evening Topspiel. Don't miss out on that. And then Manchester City in the Champions League. I'm going to have to give Paul a call to see how he feels about that. But in any event, you feel for Gladbach because they really, really fought hard in that match, and it was before their home crowds there at Borussia Park, and both Marco Rose and Max Eberle, the two traders who now work for RB Leipzig, came back there, and there was some unpleasant banners, but the team really fought hard, and it's a shame actually that they ended up dropping that result in the end. Congratulations to, guess what happened with Mark's Augsburg? They held the lead and got their first win of the season, and they held the lead while being shorthanded. Where the hell did that come from? And the big story there, of course, it was Ermadin Demirovic who ended up scoring both goals, which, I mean, the first 15 minutes of that match were total slapstick. But the big story in that one is that, are you ready to pronounce his name? Former Augsburg skipper Jeffrey Havaleu, the Dutch, was brought back into the lineup by Enrico Maassen to stabilize his back three and played an excellent match. And in his post-match interview, I mean, he'll be leaving the club. He gave the captain's armband over to Demirovic. He said that, he's coming in with his story and his history, and he's prepared to help Augsburg now. So the Bavarian Swabians beat out Mainz in the battle of the basement dwellers. Mainz are in dead last place, 1 point, minus 10 goal differential, so are Darmstadt. But they signed Joshua Gilavogi today, so maybe that'll help matters. Kind of interesting. He's always been a fan favorite of many of us who love German football. The Werder Bremen FC Köln match was actually very, very interesting in that Rafael Santore scored in his starting debut. We're all thrilled about that. German Bundesliga fans are, because we really, really like the Colombian. It was a shame to see him sort of have to take a backseat to Randall Colomwani at Eintracht Frankfurt after his good season. Bremen actually played a pretty good match there. Linan, the midfielder, set up a couple of goals. Deman, the new left wing back, had a good game. Schmid played well. Stage played well. Dux got the assist on that opening goal. And Justin Jinma came off the bench to score again. Also, big news with Bremen. Naby Keita, Liverpool's Naby Keita came on late on, and he got a couple of really beastly scoring chances on. So Keita's finally back fit, and he's ready to represent Bremen. And we already talked a little bit about that horrible 0-0 draw between Eintracht and Freiburg. It was terrible. And I was talking in the prediction show how I really felt for our Bully News Sunday match reporter Olton Kokoron for him having to report on that. But he reported on it, and he did it like a champ. So thank you, Olton, for that. I suppose since we have a little bit of time left, perhaps are there any questions that we didn't get to?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, let's have a little look. Yeah. So I think we already mentioned Samuels about that. Yeah. Oh yeah, I think obviously this one from Ballum as well. Some big news relating international, about King Julian, he calls him. I'm not quite sure I go that far, but yeah, King Julian being Germany manager. So go on, I'll let you take the honor for this one, Peter. So are Germans happy, and are you happy personally?
I would have liked to have seen Louis van Gaal actually get the appointment, because I really thought that we needed somebody experienced in there. The problem is that Germany have never had a foreign Bundestrainer before, ever. So I think that's why they went with Nagelsmann in the end. Nagelsmann was in attendance at the Frankfurt-Freiburg match. And I was just thinking to myself, he's not even attending the right match this weekend. Who is he scouting at Frankfurt-Freiburg? There's nobody to scout. I mean, Mario Götze, Robin Koch, perhaps, certainly not Ansgar Knauf. He's not going to make it to the German national team.
Well, you never know the way Germany is at the moment.
I think he went because Dino Topmüller was his former assistant at Bayern. He wanted to check in on his old friend. I don't know. I mean, look, the way Germans feel about football at the moment, I mean, we're pessimistic people when it comes to our national team, but the fact that we're hosting the Euros in just a few short months, really, I mean, it's all, it's just 9 months away, and we don't seem to have a team, and we have somebody like Nagelsmann who is very avant-garde, very tactically, he needs time to build something of a nuanced system for himself. I don't think he can take what he has now and make it work. We'll see. I was actually thinking about heading across the pond to see the German national team live in Philadelphia during the October break. I'll give them a good scout, and I reserve the right to change my mind. What do you think?
Yeah, it is looking a bit desperate, obviously, for the German team after that absolutely dreadful Hansi Flick reign, which I think everyone is glad is over, basically, because it was just an unmitigated disaster, basically, from start to finish. I think nobody can actually believe just how bad it was for him, really, because, I've said to a lot of my German friends that I've known England to have bad teams before, really bad teams, but I've never known England to get stuff 4-1 at home against Japan. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's been a very difficult, to be honest, you could say difficult 2 years, but I would say a difficult 5-6 years, really, for the probably since 2018. Really, it's been difficult for the German team.
Here, DNNY notes that maybe he was at DFB headquarters. Well, he was. I mean, because he was introduced there on Friday. But you still have to you have to choose the right matches to scout personally over the weekend. And this is a very important thing for DFB. Do not allow Amazon to make a documentary on the team again, ever again. This was the most embarrassing, humiliating thing. I mean, as if the World Cup exit wasn't bad enough, having to watch that Amazon documentary, all or nothing. This is enough. All right, just enough with the football documentaries. I mean, it's we have enough football documentaries. We don't need cameras following our national team around all of the time. This was, this is, that's what we do.
For me, nothing ever peaked Sunderland till I die. That was the absolute ultimate of them. Yeah.
Well, that is a footballing documentary that you could also make the case. Well, I'm glad they made it because it was the best footballing documentary ever. But for having Martin Dean and Chris Coleman sort of pine for the cameras maybe distracted them a little bit, from helping this team.
That is true. Yeah, just another question from Ballum as well about Stuttgart. How far can they go? Like, I think DNNY, who I think is also a Stuttgart fan, I think he's mentioned that before. I think he mentioned they have had a decent schedule so far. They played the likes of Bochum at home, Mainz, who are struggling, Darmstadt. But it still doesn't take credit away from the fact they have been really good. They've won those games convincingly. They obviously won 5-0 against Freiburg as well. And then even against Leipzig, the one game they lost, they were 1-0 up at half-time in that game before, probably the only mistake Nubel's made in these 5 games really ended up costing them a heavy defeat in that one. But I would say, I said all along, I think I said a few weeks ago to Rory that I think Europe is a possibility, but I think top half is likely, very likely at the moment. I actually predicted them for, I think, 9th this season because I just like the work that Hoeneß was doing there from the back end of last season. But I think realistically, top 7, they will see that as possible at the moment. But as Peter said, they will lose players in January. But say they're still in that top 4-5 at that stage of the season, which isn't impossible. Maybe they can get some decent reinforcements in and they might gamble on getting European football potentially. Would you agree with that, Peter? Or?
Absolutely. Well, I think Guirassy has exceeded all expectations. We shouldn't forget that he had injury issues last season. If something like that crops up again, where do you turn to exactly? We don't know. But yeah, of course, if he remains in the form that he's in, I think a couple of pods ago I said no to Stuttgart being European contenders. I reverse myself now and say with Guirassy and the form that he's in, and with this offensive engine working with the way that they do out of the back, I absolutely consider them European contenders now.
Yeah, definitely. So, I think that brings us nicely on to our favorite feature of the week, Peter's Kiosk Klub. So, go on. Let's find out what the papers in the Bundesrepublik have said this week. I know that Peter loves his papers, so let's find out what he's got to say this week.
Well, we were, of course, this is Harry Kane's first Bundesliga hat trick, and Tor Triple. They didn't use the word hat trick, the Sportbild on Sonntag. They called it a Tor Triple for baby Henry, and Henry is what is that? His 5th son, or
he's had a fair few, that's for sure.
He's quite a productive person, I suppose. As a matter of fact, there was the son was the latest son was born in England. And there was a huge outcry. They were like, "Why didn't she come to Bayern or to Munich to get the baby out? That way, the baby could be a German citizen. We could have a new German team striker."
I think they might need him considering the current form.
Absolutely. The Süddeutsche Zeitung. I wanted to say this. It's Steinmetz mit Hammer und Meisel. So the way that the Süddeutsche described Harry Kane's performance, I'll translate this for you. It was a work of sculpture with hammer and chisel. So the hammer was his 3 goals and the chisel was his 2 assists. But that's the way that Germans feel about Harry Kane's performance against Bochum. He had the hammer, he had the chisel, and he is a master sculptor. The kicker, of course, did lead with Guirassy, who is auf dem Höhenflug. He is very much celebrated in the Bundesrepublik, of course. I wanted to find some photos of Harry Kane in the Sunday FC Bayern München Oktoberfest photo shoot. That's a traditional thing. So Thomas Tuchel said in his post-match interview on Saturday night that Harry Kane does have to wear lederhosen. But I couldn't find any pictures of Harry Kane in lederhosen, unfortunately, in the papers. But I think that Rune, my colleague at Bully News, will have them up sometime midweek. And that's our Kiosk Club for this week. Oh, I saved this one after the This is Alexandra Popp after the German women's national team lost 2-0. Everything's just going to hell with German football. I don't know what to say. It's a good thing we have the Bundesliga, which we're very proud of. But when it comes to our national teams, it's an absolute train wreck.
Yeah. It's like the old joke that I always make with my German friends and colleagues is basically that since I came to Germany, like everything is reversed. Like the German team's gone to pot and the England team has gone brilliant. Well, brilliant by our standards anyway. We've still not managed to bring it home, but it's a lot better than what it was before. Anyway, but yeah. And then I think, as you mentioned, Harry Kane trying to catch up Boris Johnson for who can have the most kids, I think. I think Boris is still just about out in front with 10 so far anyway. So
Harry's a good family man. I think he had them all with the same woman.
Yeah. But he just didn't want his kids to be German internationals after all. So yeah. But anyway, thanks for that, Peter. It's always a pleasure to hear your Kiosk Klub from the news in the Bundesrepublik. So yeah, that pretty much concludes the show. So yeah, if you enjoyed what you saw this week, at Over the Bar FB and at Over the Bar Extra on your Twitter. Yeah, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to us. As I say, we are continuing to grow. We're getting more and more subs every day, but we want to keep going at a faster rate as well. We want to be at 1 million by the end of the season. So come on, you've got to keep telling your friends to sub. Yeah, we can't wait. But yeah, we've got a lot coming for you guys. We've got more vlogs. Me and Petre have been discussing recently about extra games we want to go to. We're hoping that Rory also gets over to the Bundesrepublik once he recovers from his food poisoning. And then, yeah, let's hope that it's going to be another good week ahead. And we'll be back with you on Thursday for the prediction show ahead of week 6. So thank you very much, guys, and see you then. Ciao, ciao.